Cameras ready? Right. Okay. We'll go ahead and start with defensive coordinator and linebackers coach Andrew Thacker.
Coach Pat talked about what he thought the team looked like now compared to last spring. What is your assessment?
Coach Pat did?
Yeah.
And then Coach Corrala and Coach Collins, just when we had our post-practice gathering there as a group, it looks different with every positive connotation of different possible there. Just where we were, if you wound back 365 days, very pleased with the progress. That would be an understatement. Obviously, year 2 in a system, that helps. The knowledge piece of it, the cumulative reps helps with it. The body types looks different. As always, we take the opportunity to compliment Coach Corrala and what they've done in the weight room, but just body types looking different, having an opportunity to accumulate more body types with our roster as well. But the biggest piece is just going into year 2, the familiarity with scheme, the familiarity with communication, the familiarity with just the way that we practice. The transitions is everything is so much smoother. The execution, how quickly we can get ahead with the execution as well. Everything looks different, and of course everybody's optimistic in spring, but not just coach talk. It looks. I say this for 18th time. It looks different in a very positive way. So we're encouraged. We've gone 2 days without pads. Today was the first day with shoulder pads. It felt like the first day of shoulder pads, where guys were excited to strike and hit, and we had some friction out there, some friendly friction out there, which is good. Competitiveness came out today, but highly encouraged off of a 3-day sample size.
One of the most interesting storylines is Bruce going over, running back Jerry coming over into your room.
Sure.
Can you kind of take me inside that process and the evaluation process and kind of where it starts? And I'm assuming they came to y'all and said, hey, we want to do this. Is this something that works? What does that process going to look like?
So I'll try my best to answer that question too, honestly. For us, football, we require so much of them, and it's really hard. So I think if you're not passionate about what you're doing, I think it's more difficult to do that. I think both of them were passionate about having a change and having a chance to have success in something different. I think Bruce was an elite high school running back and has an opportunity to go play that position, and I think he's very passionate about that position. Jerry, all last season, even though he was having success at times at running back and having a large special teams role, would always just come and kid and poke and prod at me and talk about, hey, coach, I'm coming over the line. Hey, coach, I'm coming over the linebacker. He was running down on kickoff, and he made multiple tackles on kickoff. He's like, coach, I told you so. And I thought it was just kind of a jest ribbing type thing, but he's
actually wanted to do it.
He asked it. He's passionate about it, and he's handled himself accordingly. And what I say is, it's tough to make that transition, and as quickly as we're accelerating the install of how much scheme we're installing. So he's handled himself well. Very few assignment busts, which that's a great compliment to him over at that position. Now it's just the football going fast and the natural feel of it. But I'm excited to see his first day with pads on and see if he can have a chance to strike each other. He looked great with the underwear on and no pads, but excited to see what he looks like now that the thud piece of it and the tackling piece of it comes into play. But I think those guys are both just motivated and passionate about what they're doing right now.
Was Jerry kind of already brought the scenes of
Say it one more time.
What is Jerry? What have you seen him bring already?
So you see this a lot, but in practice, coach will get a core group of young men up. Jerry's in that group, and that's a great compliment to Jerry. That's who the players have kind of deemed as the leaders of the team, the voice of the team. So for my group, David Curry and Jerry Howard are both in that group. Obviously, they're seniors, they're older guys. They've gone through the fire a little bit, but their teammates see them as leaders as well. So that maturity piece of it. He is indicative of our culture. Everything that we talk about, everything that we ask him, he's another one of those guys that lives it in every phase of his life. So just that maturity level. We still have a young group, notwithstanding David Curry. We still have a young group, so the maturity that they're able to bring right there and just the intensity every day.
Your safety rooms would be the envy of most college coaches right now in terms of depth and talent. Kind of how do you balance the reps and try to get all those guys on the field?
So that's where the above-the-line narrative really helps us. I mean, it really does. Every time we go out there, it's not ones or twos. We're constantly mixing up that depth chart. We're constantly mixing who's playing together. It's not always Wanye and Tariq as it was at moments last year. And then position flexibility. At some point over the course of spring, those guys will have a chance to play multiple positions. Today was the third day. However, we did a third down period. It was all the way up to 3rd and 10 plus to 3rd and 13. And we got out our third down package. That was Prowler. When we did that, there were 6 DBs on the field. Tariq Carpenter was down playing a dime position, which in a base structure would be a will type linebacker. Caleb Oliver was also playing that position, who's in that safety nickel room right there. So a lot of position flexibility between free, strong, and nickel, and then also to the sub packages on third down. So it's a great asset. And then now we have a year sample size of what that above the line depth chart really looks like. And those guys now know that it's not starters playing whatever that is, 75 snaps in an 80 play game. There really is reps that are given around to keep guys fresh. So there's honesty in what we were saying in our above the line chart. Above the line depth chart, it wasn't just coach speak or something that we were trying to blow smoke up their booties.
With Jerry, it looks like that burst is really impressive, but also with him, like that's kind of thinking through the run fits and the technique of tackling is where he's got to. Is all the work he has to do.
So literally, that's exactly it. And that's the conversation we've had after the first 2 days. And again, it'll be interesting to see it on film and practice. But just natural acceleration and pressing the football and taking angles to tackle someone. I've hardly had to coach that at all. That's just natural, which is a great thing. Now it will be college football requires so much of your hands. Taking on blocks and not avoiding blocks or running around blocks, and linemen getting up to you trying to grab you. So that'll be the learning curve for him, and the experience curve for him is block destruction is what we call it, but taking on blocks, disengaging. And he's actually watching his special teams. He's actually a natural tackler, but just being in correct body position to make sure that elite running backs or elite players, skill players in space don't make him look silly if he just uses a leverage and technique.
I was talking to Demetrius, and he's a really funny individual, and we were talking about kind of his progression over the past 2 years, and kind of coming in and not really knowing what y'all had planned for him. And he said the conversations that y'all had at the beginning was like, "Hey man, I think this could work for you." Now that he's a year into this, do you see this year kind of being a breakout year for him in the sense that he's gotten it now, he's made that transition, and now he can really put his feet in the ground?
Absolutely. And I'm not insulting y'all's intelligence. When we go out there, you guys obviously have the observation of who's going with the first and second groups as they go out there. So he has been in the mix up there. He's played with David Curry. He's played with Jaquez Jackson. He's played with Jerry Howard. So that's how we feel about him. Yeah. He's one of those top line guys. And then the biggest compliment that Jeff Collins obsessively gives Demetrius Knight is how you do anything is how you do everything. He embodies that. So he had, I think David Curry was given the award for handling himself in the best in the offseason from the last 8 weeks until we got to spring ball with Coach Luke Caralla. Demetrius Knight, Tobias Oliver had to be a close second and a close third as far as just doing everything that we ask plus more. In a culture of doing extra, they do just extra. So he's got all of the intangible qualities. He fits in that freakish mold, right? People, we kind of use that term loosely. Probably fits him pretty well, just what he can do athletically, what he can do in a weight room, how quickly, how fast he is, how explosive he is, just natural things that he has. The good Lord really gifted him, he really did. And now, again, he's going into year 2, and he's just bought into the transition. He came in as a quarterback. He was freaking recruited by Paul Johnson to be a quarterback, and then he had an unbelievable spirit about, you're going to be a linebacker, and he didn't complain, not for 1 second. He had an unbelievable attitude, and all of that's just paying off. He didn't waste time feeling sorry for himself in a tough situation. He just attacked in everything that he did, and it's an unbelievable compliment to the kid. And then to go full circle and to be long-winded, all of the linebacker traits that you have to learn, kind of the conversation with Jerry, he's now going through a year of those, and it's really, you can see what that looks like now, being able to take on blocks, being able to be a good body position, being able to have more power with his hands. All of those things are showing up on film now, so really excited, and everything that we stand for, he's got the character traits, so couldn't be more pleased with him as a young man.
One of the guys who didn't play last year, one of the few guys on defense, was Cornelius Evans. It seems like he's really transformed his body, and he looked like a basketball player when he got here, and he looks like much more like a linebacker, defensive end kind of guy. Where do you see him kind of fitting in?
So he's one of those young men that's put on 20 to 25 plus pounds, and you're exactly right. We recruited him because of his height and because of his length, and then all those body types that we kind of obsessively talk about. And he is 1,000% that. He's taken great pride in the way that he's put on weight and put on power. I'm pointing right over there. That's a cage right there. The cage is to create pad level. what he looks like going in and out of bags and in a great linebacker position in that cage looks completely different from what he came in the fall to what he is now in spring. So really pleased with where he's at. And then as he continues to play more violently, he's going to get more reps too with those older groups as well. So excited about what he'll be.
This is
David.
kind of an elementary question, but it kind of just goes to the basis of coaching in general. When you look at your room, you have guys who are transplanted in, guys who don't really have that much of a background in the position that you want them to play. So when you're kind of looking at your room as a whole and you're kind of dissecting everybody's development level, how do you look at the individual and coach to the individual while also understanding that, hey, we got a lot of things that we got to install here?
Cool. That's a great question. So I'll get long-winded sometimes. So last week, I'm going to come back. Last week, I had an opportunity to go to the Combine. I had both my Temple linebackers. So Sean Bradley and Chappelle Russell both were in the NFL Combine as linebackers. When they arrived at Temple, they were not necessarily linebackers. Sean Bradley was a basketball player, running back in high school. Chappelle Russell was a quarterback in high school, had played a little bit of defense, but I inherited that group. That experience probably changed my mind more than ever as what a linebacker looks like. Those two young men now, Sean Bradley was 6 foot 3/4, 234 pounds at the Combine, and just ran 4.51 in his 40-yard dash and just made himself some money. I'm so happy for those young men. I've got an unbelievable relationship. I had a chance to go up and support them. It was awesome. So to talk about, they don't necessarily have to be linebackers on their high school tape. Rewind back whatever it was 10, 15 years ago, and you're looking for guys with neck rolls and guys that are 230 pounds and running downhill and taking on a fullback, and you were looking for how physical they tackled. It's not necessarily the profile we're looking for now off tape. It's more body types, physical traits, and then skill sets and making sure that they'll be aggressive. So I love that we don't have all of these ready-made linebackers, and that experience changed my mind how you can transform them into linebackers to play at a high level. And I share that experience with those guys often. Obviously, I've got that experience, and they see the tangible result of Sean and Chappelle now in the NFL Combine, and hopefully going to have successful NFL careers. So that really helps me in the narrative in that room. And then you've got the dynamic of our room. You've got an older vet like David Curry, who, in their mind, he's 32 years old, and he's in his 18th year as a graduate senior. So you've got that maturity, you've got his experience. So the NCAA has CARA laws, C-A-R-A, CARA laws, that we only have a certain amount of time with them. David Carey does an unbelievable job of getting those guys together and teaching them. His voice is pretty much exactly what I'm saying, and he does an unbelievable job of getting those guys ahead of the curve faster as well, with the limitations of time that I have to spend with them.
Time for two more for Coach
Speaking
Thacker.
of David, he said he was excited about what he's seeing in front of him with the front four, and specifically with Michael Lockhart and where he was with his football career and where he is now. Could you speak a little bit about that, the front four and Michael?
Yes, well, I am so excited to go watch tape. All right, so one of our off-season focuses as we come into spring ball was we had to play with better hands. So I'm going to answer your question in that way. We literally have a graphic every day in the defensive reading room, and it's called "Look, Ma, no hands." All right, it's a fun way for us to talk about young men that aren't playing with their hands. Right? In the past, we had defensive linemen that weren't taking the correct footwork, and they weren't playing with their hands; they were playing with elbows. That caused them to get reached and be out of their gaps and put linebackers at the 7th level in difficult situations. So that is showing up less, and that's a great compliment to Coach Knight, Coach Coleman, and the defensive front, being able to play with their hands, being able to be more powerful, having more weight, having more power, and then having a group that's been through it now, right? We didn't have anybody that had really been through it there last year, and they're playing at a much higher level. So for David, for Demetrius, for Jerry, for Jaquez, for our room, that keeps those guys free. And largely, it is okay for a defensive lineman to make a play, I promise you. But a 4-2-5 structure often lends itself to the second-level linebackers making a lot of tackles and a lot of assist by scheme. So those guys are doing a great job of protecting us, and the coaches are doing a great job of coaching them, and it looks different.
I was talking to Quez about how last year he was able to kind of turn the curve and build some momentum. What have you seen from him so far?
Yeah, he loves football. Quez had some friction out there. I guess that was my euphemistic way to say some conflict out there, but he had some friction. I knew that was going to happen. I did not have a crystal ball, but he is chippy, he's instinctive, he loves football. I can never take that away from Jaquez. It makes him have emotional highs and emotional lows out on that field sometimes, but I never have to tell Quez, let's go Quez, let's go Quez. I'm having to tell Quez, whoa, when we're in a thud period out there. So he's got just natural instincts as a linebacker. Loves to play the game. He is a playmaker out there, the disadvantage Quez had this past season was he broke his hand first day of fall camp. So he wasn't ready all the way up until maybe the day before Clemson. So just those reps that he missed in fall camp got him behind in terms of the depth chart, in terms of how many plays he played in the front half of the season. The last half of the season, he was pretty much a starter. He was above the line. He was playing 45 plus games, plays a game, and just a natural production. In the Georgia game, the last game of the season, can't remember off the cuff, but he was upward of 50 plays to 60 plays at the will linebacker at that position. The other thing that I'm very complimentary of Quez is try my very best to cross-train them, the Mike and the will position. He's somebody, because of his instincts, because of his awareness, because of his ability to learn football at a high level, he can play both positions seamlessly. So at some point, God forbid, we'll probably have some type of injury or someone down for a series or maybe for a game or whatever. That multiplicity of position allows us to have a strong rotation as we go through the season until we continue to build the above-the-line depth chart.
Okay, last one.
The goal of each player, or averaging 10 pounds added per player. I'm curious, obviously it's very early, but do you see that, and kind of how do you project that being able to impact?
I do, and I see just a great compliment to Brent Key, to Marco Coleman, to Larry Knight, just the body types, and then what we've got coming. Just the line of scrimmage looks different. That's where it makes the biggest difference. DB, if they put on whatever pound of muscle, or linebacker helps, but just in the fronts, offensive and defensive lines, it looks different up there. Just the amount of power they're able to generate. It looks closer to what it should look like.